28 years after their own wedding date of August 18, 1979. The Dubendorfs decided to write a letter explaining the remarkable coincidence and congratulating the happy couple. Melody and Matt were dumbfounded. Both had had several failed marriages in the past and were skeptical about marrying again, but they took the note as a sign from the universe that they'd finally found the real deal. If you have any one-in-a-million coincidences you'd like to share, get in touch with me at coincidences@beamazed.com. I'd love to hear them. And who knows, you might just be featured in the next installment. The 2020 Quarter. Any hardcore coin collector will know that there are tons of commemorative designs released each year by the US Mint. But one particular quarter caught people's attention this year for a rather unsettling reason. The quarter in question, which was ordered by Congress in 2018 and released in 2020, features a pair of upside-down Samoan fruit bats on its reverse. What's so strange about that, you ask? Well, according to online conspiracists, the quarter could be an indication that the COVID-19 outbreak is part of some larger government plot, given that the virus likely originated from bat soup from Wuhan's wet markets. The thing is, the coin is just one in a series of 56 quarters released in batches of 5 per year from 2010 to 2020, each depicting a national park or other national site in a U.S. state or territory. The so-called Corona Quarter honors the National Park of American Samoa, and Samoan fruit bats have no known connection to the novel coronavirus. What do you think? Just an unfortunate coincidence, or something bigger? Twin mortality. They say twins share an inseparable bond, and in the strange case of two unlucky Finnish brothers, it seems even death could not stand in the way of breaking it. On March 6, 2002, a 70-year-old man was hit by a truck and killed while riding his bike in Rahe, 600 kilometers north of the capital, Helsinki. The accident was equal parts tragic and ironic because about 2 hours later, his identical twin brother crossed the very same road on his bicycle and was also hit and killed by a lorry. In fact, he reportedly died just 1.5 kilometers from the spot where his brother was killed. To make matters even stranger, it later transpired that the brothers didn't even live together. While the first lived in Rahe, the second lived in the neighboring municipality of Patajoki. There was no way the second man could have been informed about his brother's accident before he met his own untimely demise, making this one seriously spooky coincidence. Good luck or good genes? It seems like some people are natural-born survivors, and no one proves that point quite like Ana Diwali, a 106-year-old grandma from Madrid. Way back in 1918, during the outbreak of the deadly Spanish flu, which infected as many as 500 million people in 36 months, Ana was a country girl aged about 7. One day, she went out to collect some milk and collapsed under an oak tree, and hours later, her mother found her with a high fever. Miraculously, Ana overcame the deadly flu and lived a full and healthy life. That is, until 100 years later, another virus rocked the world in 2020. This time, Anna was living at a nursing home in Alcalá de Valle, where her family were informed on March 20th that she was one of 60 residents who had tested positive for COVID-19. When Anna was transferred to a hospital in La Linea, her family feared the worst. But within a few days, the 106-year-old had overcome the contagion and was back fighting fit. In October 2020, Anna turned 107, making her the oldest survivor of the coronavirus in Spain and one of the eldest in the world. It takes some seriously killer genes to survive two pandemics a century apart, but this super granny proves that anything is possible. Best dressed. For most people, turning up to an event wearing matching clothes is a total fashion disaster. But not for these cool cats. Believe it or not, these two separate families happened to bump into each other wearing the same funky print and just had to snap a photo of the occasion. Who said matching parent and child outfits can't be cool? Blending in. Speaking of matching outfits, it isn't only other people we have to worry about while picking out our clothes in the morning. Take a look at this girl, for example, who clearly didn't consider what her classmate's coffee cup would be wearing that day. How inconsiderate. If it wasn't for the neon green lid, this perfectly lined up coincidence would have been the makings of some seriously effective camouflage. Lucky day. You know that mini heart attack you have when you realize your phone isn't in your back pocket anymore? Anyone who takes a few extra minutes in the bathroom will know that that fear is only amplified by the possibility that your precious device might have ended up in the bowl. So can you imagine the relief of looking down to see this instead? Seems like whoever snapped this shot got a lucky break that day. Your back pocket is never the safest place for your iPhone, dudes. Perfect timing. It's important to be appreciative of everything nature has given us, but there's one creature I think we can all agree on as being a total universal annoyance: mosquitoes. Their incessant buzzing doesn't make them hard to spot, but tracking one down and catching it is a whole different story, which is precisely why this is such a remarkable coincidence. You've got to be Neo from The Matrix to close your AirPod case at such an eerily perfect moment, right? Striking gold. The Bank of England is one of the oldest financial institutions in the world. Since 1734, it has occupied a 3.4-acre site in London's Threadneedle Street, where the iconic building conceals 8 subterranean vaults filled with gold. With 8-foot-thick walls, specially designed keys to each vault, a state-of-the-art protection system, and recently added voice recognition tech, it's no surprise that the bank hasn't been robbed in its 325-year history. That is, apart from the time its defenses were breached by an enterprising security worker, entirely by coincidence. Back in 1836, the directors of the Bank of England received an anonymous letter, in which the author claimed to have direct access to the gold in the bank. At first, they assumed the letter to be a joke and chose to ignore it. But then they received another one, this time offering to meet them at a time of their choosing inside the main vault. The directors still thought it was impossible that someone could have broken in, but they decided to agree to the meeting anyway. So, one evening, they gathered inside the vault when suddenly, right on time, a man popped up from beneath the floorboards. According to the man, he was a sewer worker who had been working on repairs close to the Bank of England site at Threadneedle Street. During a routine inspection, he had unwittingly discovered an old drain that led directly underneath the gold vault inside the bank itself. After a quick stock take, the directors found that the well-meaning man had not taken anything from the vault. As a reward for his honesty, the man was given £800, over $120,000 today, which would have changed his life for good. He seems like a better man than most, but what would you have done if you found the vault? Incredible aim. Some people seem to have a naturally good aim when it comes to sports like archery. Sure, hitting a bullseye first time is no easy feat, but if you want an even harder challenge, why not try this on for size? Believe it or not, someone managed to shoot an arrow right through a power line. No biggie. And it's not the only time this has happened. In July 2020, the Empower Energy Company posted these incredible images of another arrow that was shot through one of their fiber lines in South Jonesboro, causing some local outages. What's even more impressive is that the arrow was falling down towards the ground when it perfectly pierced the line. Even if it was shot downward from a helicopter, this would surely be a 1 in a million shot. It makes you wonder, what kind of maniacs are out there shooting arrows at power lines? From tragedy to triumph. On the morning of April 15, 1912, the RMS Titanic, the most luxurious liner to have ever sailed the seas, collided with an iceberg in the North Atlantic Ocean and sunk, taking over 1,500 lives with it. Then, on the 4th of June 1940, another significant historical event took place when 338,000 Allied British soldiers were rescued from the beaches of Dunkirk during Operation Dynamo, turning tragedy into triumph. What do these two things have in common, other than being two defining moments of the 20th century? The answer is one man named Charles Herbert Lightoller. Lightoller had already survived a revolution and smallpox outbreak in Rio de Janeiro by the time he took the position of second officer on board the Titanic in 1912. As the ship began to sink on that fateful morning, Lightoller realized that all collapsible boats had already been launched, and instead dove into the ocean and attempted to swim away from the vessel. But the force of the suction from the sinking ship meant that he was dragged underwater and pinned against a ventilation shaft, fighting for his life. Lightoller had almost accepted his tragic fate when suddenly a boiler explosion from deep within the ship produced a blast of hot air powerful enough to propel him back up to the surface. By a stroke of luck, Lightoller found himself next to one of the collapsible boats he'd launched, which was capsized. He scrambled on top of the collapsible and awaited rescue as he watched the Titanic sink in the distance. Flash forward to June 1st, 1940, and Lightoller, who was not deterred by his near-death experience, set off to the beaches of Dunkirk with his son Roger and another sailor. There, Lightoller helped to save the lives of 127 men by taking them aboard his motor yacht, the Sundowner. Some people are just born to be heroes. Weather wonder. No matter how many rainbows you see in your life, chances are you'll always look up and say, "Whoa," whenever one appears in the sky. You might even feel strangely compelled to snap a quick photo, which is exactly what this incredibly lucky person was trying to do when they caught something even more mind-blowing. A rainbow and lightning at the same time. This is an incredibly rare sight because lightning often occurs during heavy storms, while rainbows generally appear after the rain has stopped. To capture both at the same time, it must be raining with enough sunlight for a rainbow to form and lightning strikes still sizzling, making this one seriously 1 in a million coincidence. The plastic Jesus on the dash really pulls the photo together though. The only thing better would have been Thor. Lost and found. If you're an avid golf player, you've probably lost many golf balls in your time on the course. Thankfully, they're pretty replaceable, unless you have a lucky ball. So you don't have to worry that you'll never see one again once it goes flying out of your eyesight. That is, unless you happen to be cutting down a tree many years later and end up slicing right through a golf ball that has become totally encased within it. Perhaps this poor ball got stuck in a fork of the tree during a lethal swing, or maybe it was even hidden by a pesky squirrel. Judging by the number of tree rings around it, it seems like this golf ball is at least 13 years old. But I have to wonder, was it wedged in there, or was it driven in? And if you got those golf puns, you need to get out more. The Two Pandas Curse. In 1974, 3 world leaders were forced to step down. each owed their downfall to an unrelated scandal. But there was one very strange, very specific thing they all had in common. They had all been given two pandas. Richard Nixon was given two giant pandas by the Republic of China during a visit in 1972. Presumably, a box of chocolates was just too cliché, and he found himself resigning 2 years later thanks to the Watergate scandal. Then, also in 1974, the then Prime Minister of Britain, Edward Heath, stepped down following a series of miners' strikes. And guess what? Heath had also visited China that